Welcome to the Coop Tank. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, coming to you from SuiteRecording in beautiful Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And Joe Gangemi, my producer and my good friend and the owner of SuiteRecording. You were doing something at my event the other night, Cocktails with Cooper, which was at Splits in Maple Shade. And you were interviewed. I actually got interviewed by Dan Ninnerol. So what was that project? What is that you're working on?
Yeah, Coop. First of all, I want to say thank you for throwing these wonderful events. It was such a great time. There was well over 75 people there, just a great networking experience. So what we were doing was SuiteRecording was working with Dan Ninnerol of Modern Classical Chefs on a little bit of video content, because that's what we do here at SuiteRecording. And he was basically talking to people, and it was something of like a networking thing, but we were also kind of recording the content, and he was talking to them a little bit about food, because that's what he does at Modern Classical Chefs. He's a personal chef, so it was a lot of fun, and look for that content to be coming out soon. It was a great time.
Okay, now tell us, what else do you guys do here? I know what you do at SuiteRecording, but tell the viewers and listeners what you do at SuiteRecording.
Of course, at SuiteRecording, we help brands and businesses to leverage the power of podcasting and YouTube to generate quality content and to amplify their message and reach their audience in a fun and unique way. So we can help you with everything from planning your podcast or your content to recording it and producing it and even publishing it. So if you're interested in learning more, you can contact us anytime at hello@suiterecording.com or visit us on the web at suiterecording.com. That's SUITE. Take it away, Coop.
Okay, we have a great panel. Today I was looking at my panel, and we have a first timer, and we have a second timer, and we actually have a third timer. And my first guest panelist is from OGC Solutions. It's Marc Snyderman. How you doing, Marc?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on today.
All right. And then he's been on. I texted him at 8 in the morning. I said, I needed a guest, and I knew he'd be there. And it's from John Cruice Photography. It's John Cruice. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me.
And finally, she was on a year ago. It was a little over a year ago. I noticed. It's from First Impressions Marketing. It's Nancy Starr. How are you, Nancy?
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me again. I'm thrilled.
All right. So, Marc, tell us a little about OGC, what you do at OGC Solutions.
Sure. So we're, the focus is on helping small and mid-sized businesses with outside general counsel services on a subscription basis. Traditional legal is way too expensive, isn't helping and isn't supporting smaller businesses the way they used to, the way it was when I first started out as a lawyer. And I spent a bunch of time as an operations person, and now back as a lawyer again, trying to help people and bring, true advisory services to small, mid-sized businesses.
Okay. Now, John, tell us a little about John Cruice Photography, which, by the way, John took a picture at my event the other night, and I said, can you take a picture? He goes, oh, am I going to tell you to tell me jokes? I'm not getting paid. But he took it, and that's why he's on the show. I felt guilty. So, John, tell us about John Cruice Photography.
So thanks, Steve. So I am a boutique portrait photographer. I specialize in creating signature wall art out of people's stories. So I love talking to people with a passion, whether it's their family, their kids, their pets, whatever it is. Give me 1,000 words, and then we're going to make an image out of it that they get to look at forever.
All right. And Nancy, tell us a little about First Impressions Marketing.
Sure. First Impressions Marketing is a full-service, award-winning marketing firm, and this is our 30th year in business, and we tend to work with business owners and leaders who really understand the impact that marketing can have on their business, but sometimes they feel a little frustrated because it's not working, it's not moving the dial, and they're not sure why. And that's where we come in. We do things a little bit differently than other marketing firms. I'm really interested in hearing your story and figuring out what makes, what is the spark in your company, what makes you different, and then we take it from there.
All right. Now, John, how did you end up with John Cruice Photography? Because I know you have a background in architecture, I believe, but what was your path to getting to where you are?
Yeah, it's a weird and winding path. So I have 2 degrees. One is in business and one is in architecture. Architecture was my original major. Then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I got a business degree with a concentration in marketing because I figured that's flexible enough for me to get a job, and then I'll figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I got a job at Vanguard, the investment company, and I was a data analyst there. So I was doing statistics for a good 10 years, but I missed being creative. So then I went back to Drexel at night, finished my architecture degree. Meanwhile, the financial collapse happened. No architecture firms were hiring anybody. And so then I moved over to the website of Vanguard, so to user experience design, because as my friend and then soon to be manager told me, he goes, design's design. He said, it's a different building material. Just do that here. And so I did that for a number of years. And photography was just a new creative outlet. I was going to school at night and working on projects during the weekend. And so when I graduated, I had all this free time and no creative outlet that I really wanted to do. So I started just taking photos of the city, the architectural stuff, walking around doing city photography. And then I started to like meet up with people through Instagram and then started doing portraits. And that's the first time it felt like design again. So it was sitting down with a person, talking to them about their story, creating something in a collaborative way. And so then I started to get like inquiries and published and, got an award. And I'm like, oh, this might be a path for me. So I reached a creative limit at Vanguard. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go do this full time. And so in 2019, I went full time doing portraits.
All right. How about you, Nancy? What was your path to first impressions?
Yeah, I actually went to school for advertising. I went to University of Miami a long time ago, and I knew I was interested in design, and I was also interested in psychology at the time. I didn't realize how closely paired they are. So it wasn't until I got out of school that I realized marketing can do both of those things, really. So I had started off doing some work. My father had owned a restaurant in South Jersey, and I was helping him market that. And really from there, I picked up a few clients, and that was how I started. It was it was a surprise. It was not my intention to start a business on my own. But it seems to be something that runs in my family. Both of my parents, I'm going to call them serial entrepreneurs, so I think it's genetic.
Okay. How about you, Mark? How did you get to, because you said you were a lawyer and then you this, and what's your path to where you are now?
Yeah, it's a windy path of a lawyer that turned into a business guy that turned back into a lawyer uh, along the way. So it started out as a corporate securities lawyer in Manhattan, worked in-house in one of the cable companies when they went public. So all kinds of big transactional work, super boring stuff, and came back to South Jersey to help out a local engineering and IT services company. Ended up becoming the COO of that company and helped build that company over about 15 years. And then left there about 7 years ago to go back to private practice again. And that's when I kind of decided to do this subscription model, trying to help out small and mid-sized businesses.
Okay, see that you all have different branches, but you're all sort of have the same picture. Now, I'm going to ask you. We'll start with you, Nancy. We see on LinkedIn, and people are always like they tell you what motivates them. It's always that bullshit, like, oh no, if you're not doing this, and you look at it and you just go, come on. But I'm going to ask you, Nancy, what motivates you? What's the motive in your life? What motivates you to work and get shit done?
Well, money is one. Something about where my kid goes to college, they don't take barter. They really want an actual check. So that motivates me. But I mean, that aside, I really find, and I guess it's being a creative person also, I really like to be challenged in that way. And I really like to learn about people. I'm fascinated by people's stories, and I can sit there and ask them kind of like what you're doing. I like to ask a lot of questions of people, and everyone has their own path. And it's, for me, I guess the thing that excites me the most is when I'm talking to someone. It can be a client, it can just be someone I'm talking to, like at one of your events, and you hear something really cool that you've never heard before, that someone's doing that's different. And I love to be able to figure out how someone can monetize that and make that their life's work if they want it to be. It's fun. You shouldn't ever be in a job you hate.
Exactly. So what motivates you, Mr. Mark?
I mean, it really comes down to helping people and trying to be, trying to be a better person. We all go through our own stuff in our lives and realize what's actually important. And as your kids get older, I kind of realized what was more important, and what's most important wasn't really the money. It was much more about, how can I be a better person? How can I help people do what they want to do? And I get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Okay. How about you, John? What's the motivating factor in your life?
Similar to Nancy, it's like So when I finished architecture school, like I was looking at grad programs, and I said, you know what, I'm done with school. But a great way to learn new things is by meeting new people and hearing their story. And so for me, like I have like a childlike curiosity about things. And so when I can learn from somebody else, and then especially like if I could hear a story and I'm like, I know exactly how to illustrate this thing, like I get charged up, like my energy level boost and everything else. So like from that standpoint, that's what drives me to do what I do, because I love to like take a puzzle and then turn it into something simple and create out of that. So that's kind of why I do what I do.
It's amazing, how many people just really like to talk to other people now. I think before the pandemic, that wasn't as much, but I think we got to know each other so much over the pandemic because we were on Zoom. And then when we actually went out, we're like, holy shit, I've never met you, but I've talked to you. I know this. And it's funny that you all say it because it's true. It was it's so like that. It's not like the me anymore that like it was in the 80s. I mean, I was around in the 80s. That was what it was. Like, what can I do for me? But so anyway, talking about you, as I talk about me, we'll ask you, John. There's a lot of photographers out there. Why should I refer someone to you, or why should I pick you?
Um, in some cases you shouldn't. One, with any type of art, it is completely subjective, right? So I have a certain point of view, even though like, so my background's in design. I'm going to try to collaborate with the subject to create something that's really in their voice, but I have a point of view. And the difference being is that like other photographers are going to have different points of view. So it's really important, like especially in like the field I am, is to look at somebody's portfolio and say, oh, this speaks to me or this doesn't speak to me. My goal is to create something unique for them. I think that like my superpower is that like I'm open to listening to any story and then helping them turn that into something special. But the thing is that I'm not for everybody. So that's part of the deal when you're in a creative field. It's like it's not for everybody. So you have to have those conversations and then be honest with the person and say, I don't think that I'm right for you, but I do know some people that might be.
Okay. I want you to take a picture of me and Gus the Groundhog, like it's Lady and the Tramp, where we're sharing spaghetti. Because everyone knows I hate Nancy. See my act, and you know, John. Everyone knows I hate Gus the Groundhog, but I think that would be good. I got to find. Which actually, I know someone who worked with a guy who's the voice of the Gus the Groundhog, and said he's a real prick. The guy who voices him. So that's just something I hear. I think Joe Conklin told me that. Maybe not. Don't take my word on that. Mark, lawyers, tons of you guys.
Yeah.
Why am I picking you? Why am I? I mean, why you?
Thousands of assholes out there, right? We're everywhere.
So why am I picking this asshole?
Why are you picking this asshole? Because I'm different, right? I basically say because I'm not just a lawyer. That's the reason why you want to talk to me, because I did run a company for 15 years, and I'm also a latter stage entrepreneur. I have about 8 different companies that I'm running right now. And when you add that up, I've been in businesses from startup through $1 billion business, and been in the business and working in the business, not just as a lawyer, but actually in business. So if you want a business lawyer that actually has been effective in business and understands business, that's why you call me.
That makes sense. I always say it too. I also think that sometimes when people want to get a business coach when they're for the small business, I would want my business coach who was someone who had a business that failed, because then they can sit there and be like, okay, this is what I did wrong and you won't. And I've always thought that, and people are like, no, you need that gung-ho. Oh, and it's like, no, you want someone who screwed up and, knows what you go through. So Nancy, marketing, man, there's a ton of you guys. I think there was like 5 of you at my event the other night. Tell me, why am I picking you?
I know, right? I think people refer to marketing as, the big black hole on their expense sheet, right? It never ends. And I would agree with both of you what you were saying, John and Mark. That same thing. I'm not a fit for everyone, and if anything, over the years I've gotten to be more selective, because I think the number one thing people are looking for, at least in marketing, is they're like, can you help me? Can I get results? And if I can't get you results, you're just not going to stay with me very long. So I tend to pick clients that I know I can really help. And we've done some really cool things and helped sell a lot of stuff and influence people. And that really That's the latest thing that someone wants to see. I mean, I think the other thing is, that I'm objective. It's very hard to get to step far enough away from your own business to be able to see it clearly. And it may sound basic, but I come as the layperson, and looking at with really fresh eyes, and it really helps. We're able to give some really good advice by taking a step back. And I think the last one is experience. I'm recently reading again Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, where they talk about what makes you an expert, and it's 10,000 hours doing something. And I've got more than 10,000 hours, I'm pretty sure. And I can't say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot of marketing mistakes and successes, and I bring that with me.
Okay, that's a good answer. But you brought up Malcolm Gladwell. I asked about a book later, so you can't use that one when I do. So, so I'm sorry, you already used it. You jumped it. You jumped the shark, man. You jumped the shark. So this question, I'm going to add a part to it. It's going to be a two-parter. And we're going to start with you, Marc. Who's someone in your past, an important person who has shaped who you are, the person you are now? And the second part of that is, who's someone now who is like a confidant or a mentor, or someone you spend time with that's important to you? We'll start with you, Marc. Who was someone early in your life that shaped you, and who's someone now?
Okay. So I would say early in my life, when my first job, my second job as a lawyer, I had a really good mentor and a general counsel that was just a really just solid lawyer, solid business guy, and he taught me a lot. And I still talk to him to this day. It's Elliot Prescher, great guy, just really was solid. He helped me a lot. And it also helped because it helped build my career because he was actually an Orthodox Jew. And it was back when we used to do bond deals and everything used to happen on the weekends. And I'm not Orthodox, so I would work through Shabbat. I was okay with it. He had to go home to Long Island, and I had to run things at 20 some year. I was probably 24 years old, running $500 million bond deals because he had to be back home until Saturday sundown. So he was a great mentor and a great provider of a platform for me to grow. Someone today, I would say that I use as a mentor, Michael Dersham. Is a great person in this area, serial entrepreneur, super successful, and just a super solid person.
Okay. How about you, Nancy? Who's someone in your past and who's someone now? You can say me, because I know I'm very important to you. But no, who's someone in the past and who's someone now?
Yeah. Okay. So first person that came to mind, I think it was maybe a few years out of college, and I had just started my business, and there was someone who, was maybe 20 years older than me that was in my field. And he cursed all the time, nonstop smoking cigarettes. I was doing some work in his office, and he gave a lot of advice. Don't do this. Make sure you do this. Don't take that bullshit. And it was, I can still hear his voice in my head sometimes when I'm on the fence about what decision to make. And, he's like that guy sitting on your shoulder telling you not to do that dumb shit. So, and today, I feel like today I have a nice circle around me of business owners, fellow business owners, and really going to someone else that's in your same situation, that is dealing with the same problems is really helpful. And that's usually, I've got, like maybe four fellow business owners that, I think we might call it group therapy from time to time, but it's very helpful.
How about you, Mr. Cruise?
When I first started at Vanguard, I had a manager who really taught me, like I knew everything, right? Because I was, I was one of those people, I knew everything, and I was going to not only prove you wrong, I was going to make sure you knew that I did it. And that's not how the politics of corporate works. And that's not how you get things done. And collaboration and actually convincing people of your side or coming to an agreement. She was somebody who taught me the way to have those conversations outside of the meetings. And she taught me, like, you go to a meeting because you've already had the answer done, because you talk to everybody, all the decision makers are already on your side before you walk into that room. And that was something I learned to do, and not be this loud and I'm going to prove you wrong in front of everybody. So it took me a while to, like, to get over that, but it was definitely something that helped me in navigating the politics of humanity. And then as far as now, I've really been trying to be more diligent with, I went from working in creative teams to working by myself. And as a creative person with ADHD, that's very difficult for me. I like bouncing things off people. So I have been, especially in the past like month or two, been more deliberate in trying to have one-on-one conversations with people, like lunches and things like that. So I'm still trying to get my, my kitchen cabinet of advisors that I think, oh, this is going to be the group. So it's something I've been more deliberate in working on this year.
Okay. And we will eventually meet at Milk Boy for a citywide special. I've been saying it for like the last year. I will take the speed line over one day and we'll do that. So you all own your own businesses. You run your own businesses. And do you ever go through, and if you don't, that's fine. But I know a lot of people, they'll sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and go, holy shit, what if all my clients left? And now the possibility is it's not going to happen. But I think when you're doing your own business, you're creative, you have that mental block sometimes. Do you ever go through that, Nancy? Like, do you ever wake up and go, "Well, oh my God, what if everyone leaves?" And how do you get out of that? Because it puts you in a funk, and you're like, you wake up, you're like, oh man, and like, so has it happened to you? And what do you do to get out of it?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. There's times where I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, more times than I would like to, worrying about something. And yeah, how do you talk yourself out of it? I think I I think getting out of whatever that funk is, and sometimes for me, music is very helpful. I mean, sometimes you just get stuck in a place you don't want to be in. And, I have to remind myself that, I am not my thoughts. And sometimes they're just going a little rampant and you need to kind of get them back in check again. And I find kind of changing the frequency and either listening to something that makes you more upbeat, talking to someone, or listening to music that you really like. That's what works for me.
Okay. How about you, John?
It definitely happens for me. I mean, I was just, I'm in a field that, like, portrait photography and the artwork that I create is not a necessity to survive, right? It's not food, it's not shelter, it's not money, it is a product that you get because you love it and you want it. So the idea that people would just not need it right now is totally within the realm of possibility. So I just have to remind myself periodically of the people who have had it done and the importance it was to them in that moment, and make sure that I am providing that service to others. Because like I said, it's not, you can get through life without having it. Do I think it enriches your life? Absolutely. But, it's not, it's not food. So it's something that I have to remind myself that they're, of the value of what I provide.
Okay. How about you, Mark? Do you ever deal with that?
Honestly, no.
All right. No, I was going to think, because you're a
Yeah.
lawyer, you've been working for a long time. You don't go through that.
Not really.
All right. Well, see, that's not, at least he's honest. It's good.
I think legal might be one of those, those necessities. When you need a lawyer, you need a lawyer,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those, if you feel like you know what you're doing and you can provide value, that you're always going to find clients.
Okay, that's good. Well, see, now we know Mark's like the only normal one of us. That's what we know there. He's like, I know he was going to say no for some reason. I knew, because it's just, I could tell he's got all the books, he writes, and he has 8 different companies. No, he's got all this money coming in. Me, I'm just some schmuck who's worrying about, if I can pay my mortgage. So what are some, okay, to get where you are today, and we'll stay with you, Mark, because, I hope you have some obstacles. What are some, I'm joking, what are some obstacles that you've overcome to get to where you are today, that you look back and you go, man, that was great. I overcame that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably the biggest one in my life is, I went through some severe depression. So I say that would probably be my biggest obstacle that I hit, was, going through therapy, working through and getting on the medications and working through everything you need to do, which is an ongoing adventure in life. But, you might see this as a semicolon that I have on my, which is the semicolon project. That's a tattoo that I have that basically just says, you know, everything before doesn't mean it ended. It's, you know, and you didn't end there. You have more to your story. So I'm telling more to my story these days. That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. How about you, John? Any obstacles? What's something you've overcome, that you're happy about?
A big one for me was like when I went into business for myself. So I worked at Vanguard for 20 years. I had various different careers. At no point did I apply for a job. I was always really good at what I did, and some senior leader would tap me to go do something else. Right. So at no point did I have to ask anybody for the next thing. I was good at what I did, and then I got an opportunity and I went and became good at that, and then I moved on. And when I did this, like there was an element of like that was part of my brain. It's like I create good work I put out in the world, and I'm going to have to like, hold the door back of all the people coming to me. And that's not how this works, right? So I had to like learn to go to networking events and meet new people and ask for sales and things like that. That was something that was not natural to me because I never had to do that in my career until now. And so it's something that I'm still working on. I'm getting better at it. I don't know that I'll ever be natural to me, but it is something that I have progressed in a lot.
How about you, Nancy? What's an obstacle you've overcome?
Sure. Oh, by the way, Mark, that semicolon tattoo, as a lover of words, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Just really like that. So timely question. This past year for me has just been probably the biggest in my life of change. I've gone through a lot this year personally. And I think if there's one thing I've learned coming out the other side is, you can be more courageous than you ever thought you could be. And sometimes you need to have things come in your way to see that. And the result of that is there's not much that scares me anymore. So even those scary things that wake me up at night, I'll figure it out.
It's it's funny how we deal with fear. I mentioned a book that I actually, as I said, we'll talk about books later, but a guy I interviewed for Cooper Talk named Matthew Del Negro, who was on The West Wing, The Sopranos scandal. He's on City on the Hill. And he had said, when you go through, the fear, when you have fear, it gives you adrenaline too. Because like me, before I go on stage, I always sit there and I go, oh man, no one's going to laugh tonight. No one's, and I sit there, I go, what if I go and they just suck? Or I always worry my mind's going to go blank. That's why I take the little notepad, even though I never use it. It's a crutch. But then once I kick up there, it all kicks in and I'm like, oh, what am I worried about? Even if I'm eating shit, which doesn't happen a lot, but if I'm having a bad set, I go, you know what? I know there's certain jokes I can do. And it's just weird how the fear can propel us. It can either hold you back or you propel us. So it's funny that you said the fear that now, nothing scares you, and that's good. Except heights. Maybe heights scare you. I don't know. I don't like heights. Anyway. So you're all shakers and movers. You're all out there, you're meeting people, you run to a lot of people. People probably come to you for advice. What characteristics does someone have to have for you to refer them for business? Like for me, I know John does good work, and I know John has a passion. So for that reason, I would refer him. But other people, it sucks when you refer someone and you feel bad. Like someone called me about an insurance person, and I'm like, I have a bunch of people, but some I know I don't really like. I want to refer someone. But what is a characteristic? What are some characteristics? And we'll start with you, Mark, because you probably ask for a lot of referrals because you're involved in a lot of different businesses. What qualities and characteristics does someone have to have for you to refer them?
I got to like them. They got to be trustworthy, and they got to be transparent.
Okay. How about you, John?
Yeah, I always look at referrals as a reflection of me. So it's those attributes that like I want them to be punctual, like not flaky, because those people we all run into those people where it's like, they missed the meeting, they didn't return the phone call, and it's like, well now I have to deal with that. So it's just it's a level of professionalism, but it's a level of being personable too, somebody that you can actually have a conversation with.
Okay, how about you, Nancy? What does that have to get you refer someone?
The first word that comes to mind is integrity. I want them to be a person that a good background, that has their shit together, that like what what John was saying. You know, I want to be able to feel good about making that referral. I just did it this morning and the person texted me. They're like, that person was a gem. Thank you. And that's, you know, it is a reflection of you. And I want to make sure that the people that I recommend, I feel good about and can trust them.
It always, I refer someone the other day to someone, and it's always good. And it's funny, they always, now the big word is everyone says, I appreciate you. I think it's starting to get overused a little bit. Like, I think people use it way too much. I actually sent the email about what I told you guys before about, you know, the chicken fingers and the beer, and I put, I appreciate you on the bottom, sort of as a fuck you, not as a like, hey, I really appreciate you. Because I'm like, but everyone uses that. Am I right? Like, that's like the in phrase now. It was, I appreciate you. So, but I do appreciate all of you. I'm not lying because you're on the show. And that's not a fuck you to you. That's the God's honest truth. So
And
we talked about,
you too.
what's that?
I said, and we appreciate you too.
Well, I hope so, because I'm trying. I'm just a bald guy trying to make his way in the world. That's all I am. So I asked you what it takes for someone, you know, refer, why I should do business with you. But when you break your personality down, when you break who you are down, someone actually told me the other day, they said, I'm believable. Like, I have people know I'm credible. And I thought that was a very good characteristic to have. And I am credible because I back it up. If I say I do perform, a lot of people say I perform, but Nancy and John, you see me, you saw me at City Winery destroy the house. So people know I'm not full of crap. But what's a characteristic that you're proud of that you have? And Marc, what is a characteristic or a trait that you sit there when you look in the mirror, you go, man, I'm really blessed. That's another term that's overused,
Yeah.
Blessed. People always think, I'm blessed. It's like, you're driving an Uber. Nothing wrong with that. Like, blessed, I love my job. Really? You love driving an Uber? Shut up. What is something when you look in the mirror and you say, you know, I'm lucky I have this characteristic or trait? What's one that comes to your mind about you, Marc?
Transparent, which, you know, in the legal field doesn't exist. Lawyers are not transparent. We like to hide everything that we're doing, like to make it look like we're doing rocket science, and it's far from it. It's not rocket science. It's not that hard to do. It's just a matter of getting the right education, you know, having the right experience, and I'm transparent on what I know. I give away a lot of information. I give a ton of content out. I'm authentic in that way, and all those things I think are really good for me.
Why do you think you're transparent? Is there a reason? I mean, because you're right. A lot of lawyers are full of shit, but it's refreshing to hear you say that. But why? What do you think makes you transparent?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's because I was in business, because I was an ops person for so many years, and I dealt with lawyers outside, and I couldn't understand why they were being that way. And what I realized was there's no way you can help, you know, sort of the businesses that really need help if you're not going to be transparent with them and tell them what they're going to pay for, what you're going to do for them, how you're going to do it. It's the same thing you ask of every other person that you do business with, but lawyers for some reason think that, you know, well, what we do doesn't, you know, you don't need to know how we're going to do it, and we're just going to send you a bill for it.
Okay. How about you, John? What's something that you like about yourself, a trait or quality?
I like, and you know, it go both ways, but I like my passion for things, right? I get excited by somebody's excitement for something. It boosts my energy level. You know, sometimes it could feel a little bit over the top because I really get into somebody's thing. But I love that. And I remember it's, you know, in some ways it's almost childlike. There was I'm going to butcher the quote, so I'm going to paraphrase it, but Picasso said something like, all children are artists and some of them grow up. And there's an element of like that type of imagination and creativity. We all were born with that. And I like to think that I maintain that because I still get excited by those new things.
Okay. How about you, Nancy?
Yeah, I think the trait, I mean, it's one that people tend to tell me that they like a lot. I don't know if it's my favorite one, but I tend to be very calm and even and steady. So when the whole plates are spinning all over the place, I mean, we do a lot of campaigns that have like 20 different things going on at once, and it gets a little crazy, and people I work with get a little crazy. The clients, for some reason, I work with a lot of clients that have ADHD. Maybe it's because I'm calm, you know, and we just go, okay, one thing at a time, step by step. And it seems to, people know that that I've got them, you know, that it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to do everything step by step, even when there's a monkey wrench, you know, thrown in there in the mix. We always figure it out and we keep going. And I think that's a trait that people, they can count on me for that.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Now here's one, and I always get different answers, and it's changes in our lives. You know, what I thought was successful when I was young is different than now. You know, I mean, and if I had gotten that success when I was young, I'd be dead by now. It's just the way it is. It would have been a life of excess and Hollywood bullshit, which I did leave a little bit of it, but it's you know, it's a young man's game, just like comedy is a young man's game. But for you, Nancy, we'll start with you. What is success to you? Looking back, like at this point in your life, you know, because you have kids, you want them to go to college, so you are successful. You know, you have a business. But what do you consider success to you?
That's a great question. And I think that if you asked me that 2 years ago, my answer would have been different than what it is now. Really, I think it is not about stuff. I don't care about the stuff anymore. I don't care what I have. It can all, I can lose it all tomorrow. It's really the people, my family, my really close friends. I used to think years ago, oh, I need to move to Florida. That's when I'll be happy. It doesn't matter where I live. As long as I've got the, you know, the people and the mindset around me, I am good.
Okay.
So it's definitely changed.
How about you, Mark? What's success to you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, things, you know, you certainly change your perspective over the years. You know, if you had asked me when I was a corporate and securities lawyer in Manhattan, what was going to be success, I thought I thought I needed a Park Avenue, you know, penthouse and all the nonsense that was going to go along with it. And, you know, today, you know, it's really what's important to my family. You know, where is my family at? Can I afford to send my kids to college? And give them the life that I would love for them to have and set them up and be able to pay the bills. That's all good.
Okay. How about you, John? What's success?
Yeah, I think in similar to Mark, like when I started out in corporate, it was about climbing the ladder and like, you know, managing a team and then a department and then on and on and on. And now it's really just about like, I have a job where I get to create things, right? That's like the dream for me. Like I get paid to like be creative. So that's part of it. And the other thing is when you own your own business, I have the flexibility to do what I need to do. So it's not like I have to like, you know, I have responsibilities, but it's also like I could take half a day and go do something fun. Like that's part of success for me is being able to live like, you know, not work to, you work to live, but like there's a little bit of a merging there with my current career that I get to do a little bit of both simultaneously. And that to me is like, all right, well, then I've done it.
Okay, and then you can take a half day, and once again, we can meet at Milk Boy
We can
for a
meet
city
him up boy,
special.
have a couple beers.
Okay,
Right?
okay. So we know what success is, and success isn't the same as happiness. So, John, we'll stick with you. To you, what is happiness?
Still working on that. Because I think for the longest time, at least for me, happiness was the next thing, right? And it took me a lot of years to like unpack that, right? So I got my business degree and I started a job, and then I wasn't happy doing that. I went and I got a degree in architecture, and I never went into the field, and I never like it was always going to be the next thing was going to be where I got happy. And really, it's just about like loving the process. So happiness isn't isn't the final photo. It's the process of connecting with another human being and making that thing. But that's not my natural state. I always had goalposts set for me or that I set for myself. And it was about like, okay, I'll be happy when I get to that point. And so I'm still working through that, like as an adult to say, that's not where happiness isn't a destination. Happiness is the path that I took to get there.
Okay. How about you, Mark? What's happiness to you? We know what success is to you, but what's happiness?
Yeah, I mean, I think John just hit a lot of it, which is, you know, it's the journey, right? To me, I'm happiest when I'm working with people that I like and helping people I like, and, you know, and being able to say no to things that I don't want to do anymore. That actually being able to say no and get rid of clients is probably helped me find happiness more than anything has. That
Okay.
I don't work with jerk offs and assholes anymore. I just
See,
don't
that's
do it.
good. That's good because you can't. As you get older, you don't need
Yeah,
that shit. It's so funny how we weed those people out. You can tell them as soon as they walk in. You go, man.
yeah.
I went to this networking event, and man, this guy was such a prick. And I'm not even. It is how bad it was. I was sitting there, and I went to say hi to this woman I know, and he was talking to her. Or was he hitting on her?
Yeah.
I don't know, one or the other. I think it's the same, both. And then she walks away to get sangria or something, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He was just like a prick. Had no time for me. And I was like, fuck you. I told this story before. I was at an event a while ago, and this guy, when he found out, he asked about my podcast. I didn't know him. He's like, "Oh, so I can't be on it?" I was like, "Well, I don't really know you." And then he didn't want to have time for me. I think he's one of the ones he's looking away. Now, you know, the night before, I was backstage with Keanu Reeves, okay? Yeah, people from Cherry Hill don't meet Keanu Reeves, all right? Because I'm friends with the drummer of Dog Star. So I'm like, you're an asshole. Like, just be nice to people. So, but it's funny. I'm glad you get rid of these assholes, Mark, because you're a nice guy. And it must sucked when you work with assholes when you needed to, and you're like, ugh.
Oh, it's miserable. It drains you in every way, shape, or form.
Exactly. Now, Nancy, what makes you happy? What's happiness? Not what's happiness to you?
All right. Well, first I have to just say, echo what Mark was saying. I mean, I feel like, that's when you know that you've made it in your career, when you can turn down people that you really don't want to work with, because they suck the life out of you. And it's, when you don't, when the phone rings and you dread taking someone's call, it's a pain in the ass. So I'm happy to have gotten rid of most of them. But I think to answer your question, happiness, the first thing that came into my head when I was thinking, just laughing, and there's nothing better to me these days than sitting around with some of my closest friends, and we're just, out to dinner, having a few drinks, and just laughing about whatever and having a great time. And that could be anywhere. It's the best. It really is.
Well, if you want to laugh, July 25th, Speakeasy Stand-Up at Soundplex Studios, the hippest point around. That's July 25th, people, 7:30 show. Wine tasting before. That's pretty cool, wine tasting. It's good wine. BYOB, $30 in advance, $35 a show. I'm hosting. I have Katrina Braxton and Mark Riccadonna. Killer lineup. So you can come laugh, Nancy. See, that's good. You can come.
That was an excellent segue, by the way.
See that? I know. That's what I do.
Well
I'm always
done.
thinking. I'm always thinking. So here's another segue. Networking. Here we're talking about networking, and we all network, and that's the thing. It's really networking has changed a lot. What I like my event, I call it organic networking, and I figured out why so many people show up at my event is because you don't have to pay to join a group, and there's no cover. So, if you go and you pay $35 or $40 for an event, and if it sucks, you're going to stay to get your money's worth. Here, people can walk into my event and they go, "Oh, this isn't for me," and they can leave, and it doesn't cost them anything. But you're all good networkers, I'm sure. So, John, what's something you like about networking, and what's something you dislike about networking?
I'm an extrovert, so being around people and meeting new people, like I genuinely enjoy that. The thing I don't like about networking is the repetitive nature of telling my own story, right? I start to get annoyed with my own bullshit after a while. And so when you meet a new person, you gotta, okay, this is what I do, this is how I got here, and it's just and so it's great when you connect with enough people that you start to have people that you can bounce off of. I mean, I'm always open to meeting new people, but sometimes I'm tired of hearing my own story.
Okay. How about you, Mark? What do you like about networking? What do you dislike about networking?
I'll start with what I dislike, which is transactional. When networking is transactional and people are just literally there and they're just going to hand me a business card and all they want is, how am I going to help them and who can I introduce them to? I'm done. It doesn't work for me. I'll walk away from the conversation. Network, I think you used a great term, which is organic networking. When you can create an environment where people are looking to meet people and understand who they are, and then I will absolutely make introductions if I know you. I will open my circle to anybody that I know that I feel is a good person. But if not, I'm shut off.
It's funny that you brought up the transactional, because I've asked this question a lot, and I've talked to people, and everyone always brings that up. And you would think that these people would know. It's not you sit there, in a breakout room, you think they know, it's just common sense. I mean, I don't know. But many people say what you said, Mark, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's like people are just stupid that they don't know that you don't just go, here's my card, call me. No, I don't have my phone number on my card. Someone says, you don't have your phone number. I said, yeah, because I don't want you to call me. I said, if I want you to call me, you will get my number. But I'm not, because the people, how it is, all of a sudden people call and you're like, why are you calling me? And then someone sent me a message the other day. They're like, I haven't seen you for a few years. We're looking for this and this. I'm like, dude, I haven't seen you for a few years. That's where you start. Like, okay,
Yeah.
there's a reason why I haven't seen you, because you don't show up at my fucking events. So why would I give you a referral? And
Right.
I'm gonna.
Well, and it's also like the people who within 30 seconds think that they can solve all your problems, and they haven't asked one question about what your problem is. And I'm like, and me personally, like the ones that drive me nuts are like the financial planners. Yeah, and I know I probably, because I spent 20 years at Vanguard, 5 of which was in the financial planning department, I probably know more people with a CFP designation than just about anybody you know, right? And it's just like, oh, I could solve. I'm like, dude, I helped design the product of the largest financial company in the world. Like, we're gonna back off and like ask a couple questions before you decide you're gonna solve all my issues.
So how about you, Nancy? What do you like and dislike?
Yeah, I really dislike the hard sell. When people, they're like, here's my card, and then they start telling you everything that they think you want to know, and you don't want to know anything. It turns me off greatly. Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. I didn't know that you didn't. I don't even think I have your card, Steve, just because we know each other. I didn't know you didn't have your phone number on it, but I love it. And I do something kind of similar. I don't offer my card. Someone has to ask for it.
See, that's good.
Like, I don't need to paper the world
That's
with
that's great.
So, yeah, and it works. I mean, so I was at your event, Steve, this week, and I was introduced to someone, and we were chatting for a while. And at the end, he goes, I could really use your card. I said, great, here it is. So, otherwise, I don't need to walk home with 12 cards or 20 cards or whatever.
Well, while we're on the subject of cards, and John, you don't count because you're a photographer, so you have like a book. But am I the only one who hates? I don't want a card shaped like a circle or a triangle or a platypus. I don't want it, or the ones that open like this, because I put the cards on my desk. When that one opens, they all slide off, so I throw it away. Do you keep those cards, Nancy, like the ones that are circles?
Away. I don't like them. I don't mind the different shape ones. I'm okay with the different shape ones, although it does get lost in the bottom of my purse because it doesn't fit into my card holder. So they're lost because I may not be able to find it again. My pet peeve these days are the digital ones. When people say to me, oh, just scan my, oh, it's in my phone. What has happened is you scan it and then I can't remember who it was because we just met.
Yeah.
So now what I have to do is I have to take a screenshot of it because I'll never, and then I don't know, I like to hold cards. I like to look them over when I'm done and remember something, and then I have a process and it messes up my process. So I'm not a fan.
How about you, Mark? What's your take on the business card world?
I mean, I tried the digital thing, and that's the reason why I don't like it, is because I feel like when you do tap it, you're lost, right? So I gave up on digital, went back to business cards, but I'm a firm, you end up with a stack of them. I input them all. I try to put a note into my system, and then I throw them all out.
Okay. How about you, John? Because I know you have to have the nice one but you're not just giving that to anybody because it's a expensive piece of collateral.
Yeah, it's like mine is like mine's more like a brochure, right?
Yeah.
So it's with actual like examples of my photography, and I don't hand it. It's not a willy-nilly thing that I just hand out to everybody. But yeah, I'm the same with you guys. I actually did a video on it, and I had some people like back and forth on the whole digital thing because I have 1,000 contacts in my phone, right? Like, and I'm not the best person to remember somebody's name the first time. So it's actually come up where it's like I want to follow up with that person. I have absolutely no idea what their name is. I'm never going to see that again. Like, I like having a physical card that I can, the next morning I can pull up LinkedIn or whatever, and then like connect with them, set up a meeting if I want to. I like that process because it is, it's definitely something that like, there's people in my phone that I have no idea how their number got in there.
I'm with you. There was someone that I met at an event, I guess like a year ago, and I really was glad we connected, and was unable to find him in my phone through the digital thing. It never called him.
Yeah.
Well, when when it comes to contacts and phone, I'll bet you I'm probably the only guy that any of you know that has Cato Kalin's number in his phone. I doubt you guys. I bet you guys don't have it. You don't know anyone who has Cato. I've had martinis with him. He's a really nice guy. We're gonna up to the book. We're gonna start with you, Nancy. Book. You can't use Malcolm Gladwell because you already used that because you jumped the shark. And if you watch the show, you know I'd ask this question, but it's okay. You don't watch the show, but I still like you. No, a book. Give us a book that has made a difference in your life, or something that or you're reading now. Not I mean, and you can't say Malcolm Gladwell, A Tipping Point, because you already used Malcolm Gladwell. There's one author.
All right, I hear you. So I will not mention that book again. There's another one that I just started reading again called Selling the Invisible, and I don't know who wrote it, but that's kind of what I do in my world. It's marketing's quite intangible, and being able to create value, and give people, just because they can't hold it in their hand doesn't mean that it's not valuable. And I'm giving it a second read, and it's been it's always nice to review something again and say, oh yes, that's right. I do have value for things. And it's more kind of in what it is, me helping someone with a new website. How is that going to help them? Well, it's probably going to help them, in their own personal life and grow their business, so even though they can't touch it, put it in a bag and take it home, it still has immense value to them.
Mark, how about you? And I know you wrote a book, but what?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about your book? You don't have to. You can
No,
say you
that's
like
not
it.
my favorite. That's not my favorite.
Okay, well,
okay.
What's your book called? We'll give a quick plug for it.
It's actually I just wrote one chapter in a book on leadership through the pandemic.
Okay, so what's a book that's your favorite? Or help you?
Simon Sinek, Start with Why. It's by far you got right there. Yeah, that's the one, right? To me, if you can, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you can define why you do what you do, you're always going to be much more successful, and you're also a lot happier because you're doing things that you want to be doing.
Okay. How about you, John? Besides that,
yeah, well, that was going to be my book.
Stole your thunder.
Why? But since Mark stole it, I'm gonna say Mark's book. No.
Yeah.
Another book that I found a lot of value in is called The One Thing, and it's really about creating hyper focus. So as business owners, right, like there's a tendency that you have to boil the ocean because everything is going on all at once. But when you take a step back, it's really, I need to do this one thing better today than I did yesterday. And you do that enough, and until you're great at it. And you break it down into chunks, and you really focus on, these are like the handful of things that would make me actually successful, not the a million things that could move things on the dial. So it's a great way to create hyper focus around the things that are actually important.
And The One Thing is also a great song by INXS. Just so you know, The One Thing is a great song by INXS. So I was on LinkedIn perusing. In fact, that's how I saw Mark. James Corbett. I made a comment about Mark. That's why I reached out to Mark. I said, I know James. I trust James. And, I knew Mark would be good. And I was on LinkedIn. As we go, we have to go to LinkedIn. I promote all my shit on there. I promote my comedy. I promote my podcast. I don't really write anything philosophical or anything like that. And I saw some person just like bragging, like shit that's happening like 6 months from now. And they're trying to be like, hey, look at me. I do this. I'm fucking great. And I just went, and this person actually asked to be on the show, and I said, never. But it's, what is something that bothers you? And John's always good at this one, Cruise. What's something that bothers you? I always love your answers. What's something that bothers you about LinkedIn? For me, it's just everyone's so braggadocious. Is that a word, braggadocious? Yeah. Oh, no, I'm a moron. John, what's something that bothers you right now on LinkedIn?
The bullshit stories that lead to like epiphanies. And business isn't that complex, right? It is about like meeting people's needs where they are and providing them a product or service that requires those needs, and then a transaction occurs. And there's these like narrative. I mean, Steve, I sent you the one that was floating around. It was like, the guy was like, I proposed to my girlfriend over the weekend, and here are the things that taught me about B2B sales. And you're like, are you kidding me? Like, and it was just like, and it's business books regurgitated into bullet points, and it's they all of the thought leaders use the exact same format of paragraphing. It's like they all stole from each other, and it's just like every time I see it, and then I start to judge people. Like it's like so and so found this insightful, and I'm like, I am never doing anything with you, and it's like I start to judge, and I have to like back away after a while because it's like all of it is just regurgitated nonsense.
Okay, that's true. And how about you, Mark? What anything bother you about LinkedIn?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a
See, hold on,
huge
hold on. Let me
user.
interrupt real quick. I love it when I ask a question, someone goes, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "This is going to be a good answer," so I'm waiting.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the big thing right now is the amount of lead gen specialists that think that they know how to build my business and send emails, and emails all day, every day, and want to give you all this advice as to how they're going to rocket ship your business. I'm tired of it. And it's like not ending, and now it's gone into, IT companies and software developers and everybody just pummeling each other, with in-mails and messages, and I'm just not interested.
All right, that's good. Yeah. How about you, Nancy? What's bothering you about LinkedIn?
Okay, this is my number one pet peeve is when someone calls themselves a thought leader. I don't think you're allowed to call yourself a thought leader. I think
Oh,
someone else has to call you a thought leader. Yes, and just like what John said, I've seen one or two people do that, and I'd immediately I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm not introducing them to anyone, and but that's one. What I really do like when people go and do something unexpected, like if they tell a personal story or they do something a little different that I wasn't expecting to see on LinkedIn. And it makes me read it. Like if I learn something new and cool about them that I wouldn't have known, I really like that.
Okay.
Thing outside of the box.
So I'll write, and that was a hand model. I'll write that because these hands have been on NCIS and Westworld. Okay, so there
I
you
would
go.
love to hear that about you. See,
I was on NCIS. It was the most watched show in the world, and I took the place of the guy who he's an actor. He was in that movie with Jack Black at the record store. He was one of the guys who worked behind Empire Records, I think. He was one of the guys who worked behind the counter. And I guess it was cheaper to get me and then have him come in for another day of shooting. So I wore what he wore. I sat at a table with the second unit, and they on apple crates, they put up a table and they had a little button, and my hand, I went like this. I went under and I pushed the button, and I did 3 takes, and I got SAG. I mean, I could have joined SAG off of that, and I didn't because I didn't want to, but so yes, that's something that, but I would never tell that story because that has nothing to do with what I do, on
but
LinkedIn.
it's okay. That's sometimes,
Okay. Then I'll tell more stories. Okay. I'll tell them when I beat up Andy Dick. I'll tell that story too.
what
But
you have
that's
to
it.
do, what you have to do is connect it to some epiphany that you
Yeah.
had
That's
by
right.
doing
A business
3
epiphany.
takes, like
My
3
hand,
takes.
because
Yeah.
I saw my hand on TV and I picked up a pen and I wrote this book that is going to bring me to the top because, this is what I'm doing this week. I'm writing my speech to be the public speaker that I have no public speeches booked, but I'm going to call myself like a keynote speaker, like you're saying, Nance. How many? There's more keynote speakers than there are keynote speeches. Like I mean, like there's some people that are keynote speakers, but you're right, Nancy, with like the thought leader. Like you're not if you've done 2 speeches, you're a public speaker. You're not a keynote speaker, and if you did them for free, it doesn't count. I mean, it's like anyway.
Yeah.
Now you guys got me
And
all
I
riled
feel
up.
like there might be an age limit to being a thought leader. Like I don't think that you can be under 30 and I don't know. That's just my opinion. I feel like you need to have some, some skin in the game for a little
I
while.
mean, this is like
I
it's
think.
rooted in like the influencer culture that started
Yeah.
in Instagram, then moved to TikTok, and now they're aging into LinkedIn. And you're seeing this like, I'm an influencer. I'm like, who? Like you're just influencing each other to do the same bullshit.
Yeah,
Like,
that's that. We'll talk about that another time because I got to wrap up. I got to wrap up the show with the final question. We'll start with you, Mark. So someone comes up to you. You seem like someone you probably mentor some people. Someone comes up to you about advice, how to navigate this thing we call business and life. What's your advice you give them, Mark?
Know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and if you know that, I can help you. If you don't know why you're doing it, then I'm not. I can't even get you anywhere.
Okay. How about you, John?
My advice, I guess it depends on the age bracket, but like always especially for younger people, is learn how to learn, because the only thing that's constant is things are going to change. And so you're gonna have to pivot in your career. You're gonna have to pivot in like you have to learn something new every day in order to maintain. And that's a skill set I don't think that that we promote as much as we should. You're going to have to learn something new. Whatever you learn in college may not be applicable in 10 years.
Okay. How about you, Nancy?
I this is fresh in my mind. I'm just going over this with my son who's in college, and we are talking about the power of networking and who you know. He's looking for an internship, and we're talking about how, people in your circle can probably help you find one. And I wish they taught that in college. I don't think they do.
They do in certain colleges, but it's those niche like Williams and Haverford and like they are big into the network, and that's why they get the big jobs when they leave school, because they're very into cultivating that experience.
So important, I mean, just explaining that, this person, is in this industry and they probably can help you. Maybe they can't, but you should reach out to them. And just explaining to my son, this is the culture of business. That's why we go to networking events. It's not always about getting business. Sometimes I'm there because I just would like to add to my resources so I can help my clients, kind of thing. You just never know. It's a shame that there isn't more teaching about that. Really should be.
All right. Well, this has been great. You guys, thank you for coming on. Marc, how can people get in touch with you?
Best place to find me is LinkedIn, actually. No, just kidding. You can find me on, I have marcsnyderman.com is the easiest way to find me.
Okay. John.
Yeah, johncruice.com is my website. I'm on every social channel you could possibly find under John Cruice. And there aren't many of us in the world, so it's usually easy to find me.
And Nancy.
Yes, website, which is makefirsimpressions.com.
People, you can email me at thecooptank@yahoo.com. That's thecooptank@yahoo.com. July 25th, that's Speakeasy stand-up over there at the Soundplex. Soundplex is just a beautiful studio. Anyone who's been there loves it. It's hip, it's upscale, and it's a great show. Also, if you're afraid of public speaking, or you have anxiety when you go into a networking room, starting in September, when I get back from Italy, I will be sitting there and I will be teaching a 4-week class, stand up in the business world. So basically, it's 3 weeks. First 3 weeks, I'll talk to you guys, get you out of the shell, get you to work on an act. And the last class, you'll actually be performing at the Soundplex. It's also a great team building event. So if you have a team and you want your business people to get closer, reach out to me at thecooptank@yahoo.com. Also, coopertalk.net, my podcast. I just posted Glenn Phillips from Toad the Wet Sprocket. Very nice guy. They were a very big band in the 90s. And don't forget, Joe Gangemi at SuiteRecording. Reach out to him at hello@suiterecording.com. Joe's my producer because he's a great guy, and this place kicks ass. So remember, I'm Steve Cooper, and I'll talk to you next time.